farming, but not as you might think. It seems that while we have been busy and industrious with farming animals, we have been subject to a similar process. That at first might not seem as obvious, but when I gave it thought, seems quite close. Keeping in mind we have different purposes for various animals, not all are food. Some are treated to ideal conditions for the best meat, given the best food, looked after and prized for competition or breeding. Others are kept in crowded conditions and restricted from natural growth and development. You still get a product you make money from, just not as good, or as much. So, you need lots more of those to turn a profit. Culling when necessary, medicating and feeding as needed, until you have what you want. But it all comes down to the bottom line, the profits. And as we know, corners are cut, ethics misplaced, and standards vary according to requirements, it seems. Even zoos are included, and are also a good example, where even when we try and mimic a smaller version of their natural habitat, they still aren't quite happy or content, and are watched all the time, monitored and studied. Now apply that to people. Different levels of society. They create the environment and put us in it, often observing the results. Built-up city areas are akin to battery farms to me. Towns are like the free-range version. Country living must be like the zoos perhaps, or conservation reserves, where you have more freedom and area, but still not free. Then you have the zookeepers, the game wardens, farmers and owners, who get to decide where and when. The ones who have unlimited everything, but seem to want to tag, monitor and control each and every one of those animals. Like an obsession that has raged so far out of control, it's turned into the ugliest monster. But as far as we know, we aren't animals, and they aren't different from us, they just have manoeuvred themselves to have the upper hand. You may be aware of a famous line from Animal Farm that seems as apt now as it always did. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. That's the ethos behind any kind of equality they profess to be shooting for. And we are the cattle, just some are treated better than others. They claim ownership over us, in some cases take our young, decide on programs and systems for us to fit into, by whatever method or means necessary. We are used as experimental fodder for their ideas and tests, and are the weapon and victim of them. As we know, you can separate certain animals from their group, and get them to perform all sorts of functions under the right training and conditioning, laying the scene for what might appear to be a crazy or outrageous aberration from what we call the norm. Because maybe it was orchestrated to be that way. Just as they say it is quite well known that after sprinkler systems came in, firemen weren't quite as in demand as they used to be. So some started taking to arson, to give them a purpose. And I realise that has happened with so much, which may well have started with good intentions, but once the purpose is served, no one ever seems to just step down, as the job is no longer there. They either fight to keep what is already gone, or find ways to make sure there is a need for that, instead of adapting and taking on a new role. Many things that should have moved on, haven't, because people want to keep milking it for as long as possible. Series that never end spring to mind, or remakes, and the never-ending franchise that you realise is stuck on a rinse and repeat cycle, just as we are. Doomed to not only keep making the same mistakes over and over, but each time bringing in new ones, and throwing logic and reason out the window, for what seems like very little benefit. The animals held in some kind of captivity don't seem to be themselves, just as we aren't, making the best of your situation because there is no other choice. Or that is what we are led to believe. Imagine, if you opened the doors to the enclosures for the animals, would they stand around and hesitate to leave, wondering where they are going to get their next meal from? Would they stay because they know no different, and familiar is better than unknown? This is where we do differ from the animals, as we apparently have far more reasoning skills and ability to analyse the situation, thinking through the outcome. And that's where they tie us up, with worry and fear in mind, paralysing us into staying put in body, disconnecting the two, and trying to be the guide you are supposed to have internally. They want people to be easily distracted, easily led, and trusting, looking for handouts and a pat on the back by your keeper, waiting for their scraps and to feel like their favourite, you know, like teacher's pet. And what is that? An animal.